Hello, whispered ones. Welcome back to another peaceful story in the world of whispered tales. Today, I have something special for you, a modern retelling of a timeless classic, Beauty and the Beast. We all know the story, but this time it's told with a contemporary twist. Our heroine, Belle, is not just here to rescue someone, she's also on a journey of self-discovery, finding her own dreams and passions while stepping into the lonely world of Adam. Throughout this story, we'll explore the emotional depths of both Belle and Adam. We'll witness how love, growth, and healing can create the strongest of bonds. So, close your eyes, get comfortable, and allow yourself to be carried away into this modern fairy tale. Together, we'll get lost in the passions of Belle and the solitude of Adam. Let's begin. Belle was a young woman who had grown up in a small town, but her dreams were much bigger. She had always felt out of place, as she had no interest in the superficial things that occupied her peers. Books were her best friends, especially novels about great loves and lost hopes. However, the greatest void in Belle's life was the loss of her mother years ago. Her mother had fallen ill and passed away when Belle was still very young. Since then, Belle had never been able to fill the emptiness left by her mother's absence. Belle ran a small cafe in the town with her father, Maurice. Life was simple, but Belle's inner world was far more complex. She always longed for more, deeper meaning, bigger adventures. The adventures she experienced through books made her believe that there could be something beyond the ordinary life she lived in the real world. Belle lived in a small town with her father, Maurice. She was a brave and intelligent woman trying to stand on her own, but life was far from easy. Years ago, her father had been a successful inventor and repairman, but after some unfortunate events, he had started to struggle financially. Belle loved her father dearly, but his debts and mistakes made their lives increasingly difficult. Maurice, unable to make a living from the career he had once been proud of, had resorted to desperate measures, turning to petty theft to make ends meet. One day, he noticed the large, seemingly abandoned building that everyone in town had been talking about. Rumor had it that a former businessman named Adam lived there. Adam had once been known for his wealth, but after a series of scandals, he had withdrawn completely from public life. People whispered that there was still a fortune hidden inside the building, but no one dared to enter. Maurice, intrigued by these rumors, made plans to sneak into the building. Belle was unaware of her father's decision, but she carried a constant sense of worry. Her father had left the house, as he always did, saying, "I have a job to do. I'll be back soon," but this time he didn't return. Maurice had managed to sneak into the building, but he was caught by Adam's sophisticated security system. The sensors and cameras inside the building detected an unwelcome guest. Adam was extremely cautious and paranoid about outsiders. After the great betrayals he had suffered in the past, he trusted no one. As a result, he confronted Maurice harshly and detained him for trespassing. When Belle didn't hear from her father for a long time, she grew suspicious. After investigating his disappearance, she discovered that her father had entered Adam's building. Her father had made a big mistake, but Belle was determined to do whatever it took to save him, even if it meant entering the cold, intimidating building herself. Upon arriving at the building, Belle was surprised that there were no security guards at the entrance. It had a highly advanced security system, but it seemed untouched by human hands. As she took the elevator up, the sound of her footsteps echoed in the large, empty corridors, making her feel the loneliness of the place. When she finally came face to face with Adam, her first impression was that he wasn't just cold in appearance, he also carried a deep sense of bitterness and pain. Adam gave Belle a stern look and spoke, "Your father entered my building and broke the rules. If you want him freed, you will stay here." Belle was aware of her father's mistake, but she was willing to stay for his sake. Somehow, she sensed that Adam wasn't as bad as he seemed. "I know what my father did was wrong," she said, "but I will be the one to bear the consequences of his mistake, not him." Adam was moved by Belle's sacrifice, though he didn't show it. He had built walls around himself for years, allowing no one to get close. Yet, in Belle's eyes, he saw honesty and courage. Belle was willing to stay in the building to pay for her father's mistake, but her stay wasn't just a physical imprisonment, it was also an opportunity to dive into Adam's emotional world and uncover the past he was avoiding. After Belle accepted Adam's offer, her father was freed and returned home. However, Belle was now bound to stay in this large and gloomy building. Adam had laid down strict rules. She couldn't leave the building, nor could she step outside the boundaries he had set. But Belle soon realized that her time in this building wasn't just a physical punishment. It was also a chance to understand Adam's lonely and complicated world. In the first few days, Belle kept herself busy with simple tasks. Adam's apartment was large and luxurious, yet it felt cold and soulless. As Belle cleaned the rooms, she could feel the emptiness in every corner. It was as if there were no personal touches in Adam's life. The walls had no photos or artwork, and although the furniture was luxurious, it was ordinary and looked as if it came straight out of a catalog. Belle realized that Adam had not only shut the world out, but he had also closed himself off. Over time, Belle began to make small changes to fill this void. While cleaning, she rearranged the furniture in the rooms and added a few books from her own collection to the shelves. These changes were so subtle at first that they went unnoticed, but slowly, Adam began to take notice. At first, he chose to remain silent, but deep down, he could feel that Belle's presence was having a positive effect on him. One day, while Belle was cleaning the large, empty dining room, Adam quietly entered the room. Belle hadn't even noticed him as she dusted the table. As Adam watched her, he observed the calm and peaceful way she moved. Belle wasn't rushing through her work, she was doing everything with care. Adam realized that it had been a long time since he had let anyone enter his world so naturally. "Isn't there anything else you could be doing? Why are you spending so much time here?" Adam asked, his voice cold but laced with curiosity. Without looking up, Belle replied, "I'm just trying to make it easier for you to live here. This place is so big, but it feels so empty. I'm just adding a little life." Adam was surprised by her response. "I'm perfectly fine with how it is," he said, short and sharp. Belle gave a soft smile and nodded. "Maybe you are, but a little warmth never hurt anyone." This small conversation marked their first real dialogue. Although Adam didn't fully accept what Belle had said, he couldn't deny that her presence was starting to make a difference in his life. From that day on, the small changes Belle made became more noticeable. She kept the flowers in the house fresh, started preparing meals in the kitchen, and even tended to the garden, which Adam hardly ever used. Every morning, Adam silently watched Belle as she carried out her tasks. Belle's energy and care reminded Adam of a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. He had grown used to maintaining the emptiness and coldness in his life, so Belle's changes initially unsettled him. However, over time, he began to realize that this quiet sense of peace was doing him good. During this process, Belle began to understand Adam more deeply. She knew that Adam appeared cold and stern on the outside, but she could sense that there was a deeper vulnerability within him. Adam would occasionally have short conversations with Belle, but most of the time, he retreated into his own world. Belle remained patient, giving Adam the time he needed to trust her without forcing him to open up. One day, while Belle was preparing a meal in the kitchen, Adam quietly approached her. "Why are you doing all of this?" he asked. "You have to stay here, but you don't have to try this hard." Belle, her eyes still focused on the pan, replied, "I'm not just doing this to pass the time. I'm doing it to make things better. Maybe I'm trying to do for you what I want to help you feel better in this world." Adam stayed silent at her response. For the first time, he acknowledged that Belle's presence was making a difference in his life, but he hesitated to express it. Belle's natural way of touching his life stirred emotions that Adam had kept locked away for years. Yet, he still didn't know how to handle these feelings. Adam had been a completely different person in his youth. Once one of the city's wealthiest and most successful businessmen, his life had changed drastically. It wasn't just one event that had led him to this point, it was a series of small betrayals and a gradual erosion of trust that shattered his faith in people. But the most devastating blow came from a woman who had entered his life years ago and left him broken. Adam had entrusted this woman with the most precious things in his life, his trust, his heart, and his dreams. However, she manipulated his power and wealth, leaving him financially and emotionally devastated. She had abandoned him during a major business deal, turning her back on him and publicly humiliating him. After this event, Adam not only suffered great financial losses, but also believed that he had finally seen the true nature of people. People only wanted to take. Even when they claimed to love him, they were ultimately seeking their own gain. After that betrayal, Adam decided to leave everything behind and retreat into his inner world. When he withdrew to the building, he severed all ties with the outside world. Never trusting anyone again, never opening his heart to anyone, felt safer. At least when he was alone, he couldn't be hurt again. Belle's arrival at the building had slowly begun to crack the walls Adam had spent years building around himself. At first, Adam thought this young woman was only there to make up for her father's mistake. He believed, like everyone else, that she was only acting out of self-interest. But Belle had shown a patience and sincerity far beyond his expectations. She wasn't in Adam's world simply because she was obliged to be there. She was genuinely trying to make a difference. As Adam watched Belle, he was struggling internally. On the one hand, he wanted to be drawn in by her warmth and sincerity, but on the other, he feared letting her too close. The closer he allowed Belle into his life, the greater the risk of being hurt again. One evening, as Adam stood by the large window, he noticed Belle tending to the flowers in the garden. The garden, which he had neglected for years, was beginning to bloom again under Belle's care. As Adam watched this scene, a deep sense of loneliness washed over him. He had chosen to live in solitude for years, but Belle's presence made him realize that this loneliness felt more like a punishment. Every moment he spent with her made this sense of isolation more and more pronounced. Quietly, Adam descended to the garden and approached Belle. She noticed him as she was watering the flowers, but said nothing. The silence between them lasted a few minutes, and it stirred something deep inside Adam. Finally, He spoke. "Why are you here? Why do you care so much about these flowers, about this house?" Belle looked at him and replied gently, "Because this place was once beautiful. Just like you. But over time, it was forgotten, neglected. I'm just helping it come back to life." Adam was surprised by Belle's words. He hadn't expected anyone to understand him so clearly. For years, no one had seen his inner world so openly. The way Belle looked at him, it was as if she had noticed the pain he had been hiding. "It's not how you think," Adam mumbled, his voice hoarse and dark. "I've changed. I'm not the man I used to be." Belle set down the watering can and looked into Adam's eyes. "Maybe you've changed, but the man you used to be is still inside you. You may have forgotten who you are, but you haven't lost him." This conversation brought Adam's long-hidden emotional wounds to the surface. Belle's words resonated deeply within him, but he didn't know how to handle these feelings. Since he didn't know how to trust or love again, he felt the need to reject the warmth Belle was offering. Yet, with each passing day, Belle's presence touched his heart and slowly cracked the walls he had built around it. A few weeks later, as Adam sat alone in his room one night, he reflected on the changes Belle had brought into his life. He questioned why he had allowed her to get so close. Why had he let her into his world? But every time he thought about it, he couldn't deny the peace she had brought him. The more time he spent with her, the more he felt a melting ice inside him. The idea of trusting people again was still terrifying, but Belle seemed to be the only person who could make it possible. When Belle first stepped into Adam's gloomy world, her only thought had been to save her father. But as the days passed in this large building, she found herself rediscovering not only Adam but also herself. As she worked to unravel the layers of Adam's inner world, she began to realize the emptiness inside herself. It wasn't just about breaking down Adam's emotional walls. She also needed to confront her own emotional needs and inner search for meaning. Belle had always been searching for something in her life. Since childhood, she had gotten lost in her imagination, reading books about great loves and epic adventures. But after losing her mother, her dream world was no longer a refuge. It only made her feel more isolated in the real world. Her relationship with her father had always come with a sense of responsibility and obligation. Her father's mistakes and debts had weighed heavily on her shoulders, and she had always chosen to carry that burden in silence. In the early days after moving in with Adam, Belle appeared to be in control of everything. She busied herself with simple tasks like cleaning the house, organizing things, and making small changes. But at night, when she retreated to her quiet room, she was forced to face her own loneliness. It mirrored Adam's isolation. Although she appeared strong and resilient on the outside, she felt the emotional void inside her grow with each passing day. As she spent more time with Adam, Belle realized that while she was fighting to fill his loneliness, she had to admit that something was missing within her as well. Her life was far from the epic romance or thrilling adventures she had read about in books. Her reason for staying in Adam's world was more than just atoning for her father's mistake. Belle began to see that staying in this building wasn't a punishment, but an opportunity to find meaning. One day, while pruning the flowers in the garden, Belle got lost in her thoughts. She had seen the deep wounds beneath Adam's tough and distant exterior, but she hadn't forgotten herself in the process. For her, breaking through Adam's walls was a challenge, but in doing so, she also had to confront her own fears. She began to ask herself, what am I really looking for in this place? Am I here to help Adam, or am I trying to fill the emptiness within myself? At night, Belle noticed the light in Adam's lonely room would stay on, and it made her want to talk to him more. But every time, Adam would withdraw in some way. Belle didn't want to force anything, as she could see how sensitive Adam was. However, this process of patience also tested her own inner patience. While trying to help Adam, Belle had pushed aside her own desires and dreams. Belle had been searching for adventure for a long time, but she realized that the real adventure lay within her own inner world. Now, the effort she put into staying in Adam's world and helping him also meant she was discovering her own internal journey. Belle wasn't fighting external threats or past events, but rather the responsibilities and expectations she carried within herself. One day, as Belle sat with Adam, she quietly asked him a question. Staying here with you isn't just about helping you. I think I'm searching for something too. As I face this loneliness with you, I'm also confronting my own. Adam thought about Belle's words for a long time. He hadn't realized the depth of Belle's own loneliness, as he had always been focused on his own wounds. But now he understood that Belle was facing the same battle. This was an unexpected bond for both of them. Loneliness, fear, and hope were emotions they shared. Belle realized that each day she spent with Adam, she was helping them both slowly break through their internal walls. But it wasn't always an easy process. Adam still clung to his wounds and refused to open up to the world. Belle remained patient because she knew that healing such deep trauma could only happen over time. One morning, as Belle was working with the flowers in the garden again, Adam silently watched her. Belle's diligence and patience caught his attention. As she tended to the flowers, she worked with care, putting her heart into everything she did. Adam realized how Belle's simple tasks were changing his world. Her presence brought in not only physical warmth, but also a sense of inner peace. However, Adam still didn't know how to express this feeling. That day, Adam suddenly approached Belle and asked, "Why are you staying here?" "Your father is free. If you wanted, you could have left long ago." Belle paused for a moment. She hadn't expected this question, but she knew the answer. "I'm staying because something in this house needs to change," she said slowly. "But it's not just you who needs to change. I do too. This loneliness isn't just about you. I have an emptiness inside me as well. I think I'm here, with you, to fill that emptiness." Adam was stunned by Belle's words. Understanding that she was staying not just to save him, but to complete her own inner journey was an unexpected realization for him. He realized he wasn't alone in this. Belle was fighting the same battle within herself. But this truth was also frightening. Knowing that Belle understood him meant that he could no longer suppress his feelings. One afternoon, Adam and Belle were sitting together on the rooftop of the building. As the sun began to set, Belle broke the silence. "What happened in your past, Adam? Why did you lock yourself away in this building?" Adam remained silent for a long time. He wanted to leave Belle's question unanswered, but her patience and understanding had brought him to a point where he could no longer avoid it. Opening up to Belle about the wounds he hadn't shared with anyone for years was both relieving and terrifying. "I had everything once," Adam said, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Power, money, people. But most importantly, I had a woman I loved. I gave her everything, my heart, my trust. But in the end, she betrayed me. She took both my fortune and my trust in people. After that, I couldn't trust anyone. I locked myself away in this building because there was no life left for me outside. Everything was ruined. As Belle listened to Adam's confessions, she could feel the pain he had been hiding inside. Adam's past was not just the story of a betrayal, but the collapse of everything meaningful in his life. Belle understood that for Adam to trust again and rebuild himself, it would be a long journey. But this time, Adam was not alone. Belle gently placed her hand on Adam's arm. "Not everyone wants to hurt you, Adam. I'm here to help you heal. But maybe you need to forgive yourself first." Adam took a deep breath at Belle's words. Forgiving himself. That was something he hadn't even considered for years. Adam had been consumed by his own mistakes and the loss of his trust, which had led him into this emotional emptiness. But now, Belle's presence was slowly beginning to break through his armor. As time passed, the bond between Adam and Belle grew stronger. However, in the process, Belle also began to confront the emptiness inside herself. Helping Adam had accelerated her own internal journey. For the first time since her mother's death, Belle had genuinely connected with someone, and she began to accept her own loneliness and fears. One day, Belle decided to share her own story with Adam. "I've experienced loss too," she said quietly. "When my mother died, I always felt alone. My father lost himself, and while I tried to support him, I ignored my own pain. But there's always been something missing inside me. I think that's why I'm here. I want to share this pain with you and heal together." Adam felt a connection with Belle that he hadn't experienced before. Both of them were battling loneliness, opening up to each other about their losses and fears. This was a turning point in their relationship, deepening their bond even further. They weren't just supporting each other, they were healing together. During Belle's time in Adam's home, she had started to recognize both his emotional fragility and her own wounds. Since her mother's death, she had given everything to support her father, but in doing so, she had never fully acknowledged her own grief. Her father had never come to terms with losing her mother, and as a result, Belle had been burdened with his responsibilities and problems. For years, she had carried her father's burdens while constantly putting her own needs aside. When Belle started taking care of the garden, it became a place of escape for her. As she looked at the flowers, she realized that the garden had become a metaphor for her own inner turmoil and her relationship with Adam. In the beginning, the plants in the garden were withered, much like Adam's soul, dark and fragile. Every morning, as Belle went out to tend to the flowers, she noticed that as the flowers slowly revived, Adam was also gradually opening up emotionally. The flowers had become a source of hope for Belle, but they also made her more aware of the emotional wounds she had been nurturing inside. One evening, as Belle worked quietly in the garden, Adam came over to her. He noticed how vibrant the flowers had become and asked Belle, "Are these flowers blooming because of you?" Belle looked at the garden and replied, "I don't know. Maybe they were just in the right place at the right time. But I think seeing how flowers bloom when they're well cared for has taught me how to understand people in the same way." Adam fell into a deep silence at her words. Something inside him began to stir. Belle's care for the garden was, in a way, nurturing his soul as well. However, this closeness was also bringing Adam's long-suppressed trust issues to the surface. He was starting to feel something for Belle, but the betrayal from his past still weighed heavily on him. One morning, while Belle and Adam were having breakfast in the kitchen, Adam suddenly fell silent. Without looking up from the table, he spoke. "I know I should trust you, but there's something inside me that stops me. I tried trusting people before, and it destroyed me." Belle saw the expression on Adam's face. She hadn't avoided her own pain either, but she had buried it by trying to heal others' emotional wounds. Taking a deep breath, Belle spoke from the heart. "I understand that. For years, I ignored my own pain to help my father. When my mother died, my father lost everything. But I tried to hold him together by ignoring my own wounds. I'm here now to help you, but maybe I need help too." This confession was a turning point for Belle. In trying to help Adam, she realized that she had been deepening her own pain. Supporting Adam had brought her loneliness and the emptiness she had felt since losing her mother to the surface. Like the flowers in the garden, Belle was beginning to grow and explore her inner world. However, this process revealed that she too needed help. Adam became emotionally vulnerable after Belle's confession. While Belle tended to his emotional wounds, Adam's past trust issues resurfaced. One day, when an old friend of Belle's came to visit, Adam grew fearful of her becoming close to someone else and began to act harshly toward her. "Are you trying to betray me?" Adam burst out. Belle was shocked by his sudden reaction. "No, I was just talking to an old friend. Why are you accusing me of this?" Adam's face was rigid. "Because I knew someone who did the same to me. When I trusted her, I lost everything. Now I'm scared of having to trust you." Belle understood the depth of Adam's fears, but his words wounded her deeply as well. The loss of Adam's trust was putting their relationship at a dead end. Belle realized that Adam's fragility and insecurity were hurting them both. While she wanted to heal her own wounds alongside Adam through this process, their relationship was bringing both of their pains to the surface. As time passed, every task Belle did in the garden increasingly mirrored her relationship with Adam. As the flowers bloomed, Adam's spirit was also healing, but each withered leaf symbolized Adam's internal conflicts. When Belle noticed one of the flowers in the garden had wilted, she thought it was a reflection of Adam's trust issues. Just as she put effort into reviving the garden, she knew she needed to put the same effort into trusting Adam and healing together. After Adam's outburst, the atmosphere between them grew heavy with silence. Belle understood Adam's fragility, but this lack of trust left her feeling empty too. She had believed that by helping Adam, she was also healing herself, but now she realized that the conflict with Adam was deepening her own emotional wounds. She had never fully come to terms with the loss of her mother, and constantly supporting her father's grief had led her to neglect her own needs. One morning, while Belle worked with the wilting flowers in the garden, Adam watched her from afar. Tending to the garden had become a form of meditation for Belle. Every moment spent there allowed her to step away from the outside world and from Adam's trust issues, giving her space to reconnect with herself. But this time, no matter how much care she gave the flowers, some of them were still wilting. As she worked alone in the garden, she realized that these flowers, like their relationship, were fragile. Adam was aware of Belle's silence and her growing distance. He wanted to talk to her, but didn't know how. The betrayals he had experienced in the past were preventing him from fully trusting Belle. Adam felt that he didn't deserve Belle's love until he faced his past, but he didn't know how to confess this to her. One day, while Belle was working in the garden, Adam quietly approached her. When Belle noticed him, she turned with a soft smile, but it lacked the warmth it usually carried. Adam felt this coldness. "The garden isn't doing well," Belle said, looking at the withered leaves of the flowers. No matter how much I try, sometimes I just can't save the flowers. Maybe working this hard isn't enough. Adam sensed a deeper meaning in her words. Belle wasn't just talking about the garden, she was talking about their relationship. Adam took a deep breath and, avoiding Belle's gaze, spoke. I told you I couldn't trust you. It's true. Because of what I went through, I'm afraid of losing you too. But I've realized that by pushing you away, I'm already losing you. Belle had been waiting for this confession for a long time, but even so, she felt a sense of heartbreak. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at Adam. I want to stay with you, but I feel like I'm losing myself, Adam. I lost my mother, and I gave everything to my father, but in doing so, I pushed aside my own pain. Now, being here with you, my own wounds are resurfacing. While trying to help you, I've realized that I also need to start healing myself. Adam finally understood how deep Belle's pain was. He had always seen her as his savior, but Belle needed help too. She had always been patient and understanding with him, but now he saw that she needed the same support in return. That evening, Belle and Adam sat in the garden for a long time, quietly watching the sky. The silence between them wasn't just a moment of tension, it was the first step toward healing. Both of them had become aware of their own internal journeys. Belle's care for the garden had helped heal Adam's soul, but they realized that supporting each other wasn't enough. They both needed to grow and heal within themselves as well. As time passed, the relationship between Belle and Adam began to reshape. Belle finally decided to come to terms with her mother's death and made peace with that pain. She learned to set her own boundaries and no longer let the responsibilities her father had placed on her weigh her down. She started prioritizing her own needs, not just helping others. Adam, on the other hand, began to open up more to Belle, learning to overcome the trust issues caused by the betrayals of his past. Even during the ups and downs of their relationship, Belle's presence gave him hope. Slowly, the flowers in the garden began to bloom again. These flowers symbolized Adam's healing soul. Each new bud became a sign of the steps they were taking together. One morning, as Belle looked at the newly blossomed flowers in the garden, Adam approached her and quietly thanked her. This thank you wasn't just for the change Belle had brought into his life, but also for the courage he found within himself to embark on his own internal journey, thanks to her. When Belle heard this silent thank you, she realized that she had not only saved Adam, but had also saved herself. Both characters had not only supported each other, but had also needed each other's presence to confront and resolve their internal conflicts. As time went on, Belle began to question both her relationship with Adam and her own life. Staying with Adam had given her a lot. She had touched Adam's loneliness, entered his inner world, and begun healing his wounds. However, after a while, Belle realized that she had been dedicating herself to Adam's needs. Just as she had done after her mother's death with her father, she was now carrying Adam's emotional burdens. In this process, she had been constantly pushing aside her own dreams and desires. One day, while working in the garden, Belle found a book. It was a draft of a story she had dreamed of writing years ago. Back then, Belle had aspired to be a writer, but after her mother's death, she had abandoned those passions. As she held the book and flipped through its pages, her old dreams began to rekindle. She felt the need to rediscover her own life and identity. That evening, as she sat with Adam, Belle decided to share this inner turmoil with him. Adam, being here with you has meant a lot to me. But recently, I've started to feel like I'm losing myself. When my mother died, I put my life aside, and now I'm doing it again. I've postponed writing, traveling, and exploring the world. Maybe I need to leave for a while to find myself again. Adam was silent for a moment after hearing Belle's words. The idea of her leaving filled him with fear. The thought of life without Belle was difficult to bear, but at the same time, he understood that she needed to go on her own inner journey. His trust issues resurfaced, but this time, he didn't try to stop Belle. He quietly nodded and replied in a low voice, "If leaving is what's right for you, I won't stand in your way. But just know, there will always be a place for you here." Belle was surprised by how understanding Adam was. She felt a sense of relief, but she also knew that this journey would be a test for both herself and their relationship. The next morning, Belle packed her things and said goodbye to Adam. There was a hint of sadness in her eyes, but deep down, she knew this journey would bring her even more. Adam didn't say anything as they parted, but the pain in his eyes showed how hard it was for him to see Belle go. Belle left the city and began to travel on her own. She took time to return to her old dreams, writing and exploring the world. She visited libraries filled with books, met new people, and wandered the streets of different cities. During this time, Belle began to rediscover not only the world around her, but also her inner world. Writing brought back the dreams she had lost and the longing she felt for her mother. She realized that she had always lived to support others, but now she needed to learn how to live for her own dreams. However, during Belle's journey, her relationship with Adam was also being tested. In her absence, Adam was left alone with his internal conflicts. Belle's departure had left him in solitude, but this solitude also gave him the opportunity to reflect on his own independence and insecurities. He realized once again how much he valued his trust in Belle and how important her presence was in his life. Belle's absence forced Adam to confront his own issues. From time to time, Belle thought about Adam. She missed him, but she also knew that this distance was necessary for both of them. As Belle worked to build her own life, she had to decide whether she wanted to stay by Adam's side or carve out her own path. After some time, Belle decided to write a letter to Adam. In the letter, she expressed her feelings openly. "This journey has reminded me of who I am. I've realized that I love you, but I needed to find myself first. Now I'm ready to come back, but this time, stronger and more myself." When Adam received the letter, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. Belle's return was a beacon of hope for him. During her absence, Adam had faced his own emotional wounds and had begun to rebuild his trust in Belle. When Belle returned home, Adam was waiting for her in the large garden. The flowers were more vibrant than ever, just like the revival of their relationship. As Belle approached Adam, they both looked at each other with renewed trust and love in their eyes. This separation had brought them closer and strengthened their inner worlds. Belle knew that when she reunited with Adam, things wouldn't be the same. Coming back together wasn't just a moment of happiness, but also an opportunity to heal past wounds and make a fresh start. Belle's departure had been a test for both of them, but it had helped them realize how important they were to each other. As Adam greeted Belle in the garden, he struggled to control the emotions swirling inside him. When Belle smiled at him, he could see more strength and determination in her eyes than ever before. This Belle was different from the woman he had known before. She was no longer someone who lived only to serve others, but someone who was now pursuing her own dreams and was more confident in herself. The flowers in the garden hadn't withered during Belle's absence. Adam had taken care of the flowers with the same care Belle had shown them. The vitality of the flowers had become a symbol of hope for their relationship. Now, the flowers symbolized the healing of both Belle and Adam's souls. "I'm glad you've come back," Adam said as he approached Belle. "But I know staying here can't just be about me. You have your own dreams, and I don't want to stand in the way of you achieving them." Belle felt a wave of relief at Adam's words. She could see that he had changed, that he now wanted to build a life not just for himself, but for her too. Adam's trust issues had been replaced by understanding. Belle had also accepted that she wasn't just there to help Adam, but that she needed to do things for herself too. Looking into Adam's eyes, Belle said, "I came back not just because I love you, but because I've found myself in this relationship too. But this time, I brought my dreams and passions with me. We can build a life together, but that's only possible if we both keep walking our own paths as well." Adam responded to Belle's words with gratitude. They had become two strong individuals who complemented each other rather than being dependent on one another. Over time, Belle and Adam began to build their relationship on more solid foundations. Belle continued to write. For her, writing stories was a way of accepting her past while looking toward the future with hope. Adam supported her throughout this process, helping get her books published, and together they began to dream of new possibilities. Belle's passion for travel led them to new adventures together. After spending so much time withdrawn from the world, Adam began to rediscover it by Belle's side. These travels not only strengthened their relationship, but also restored Adam's trust in the world. Every new place they visited became a source of healing and rebirth for both of them. Each morning, Belle continued to tend to the flowers in the garden. The garden, a reflection of their relationship, remained full of life. But now, it wasn't just a metaphor, it had become a meaningful part of their lives. Every new bloom symbolized something they had achieved together. One day, Belle and Adam sat in the garden discussing a story they had written together. The story reflected the time they had shared, the challenges they had faced, and the growth they had experienced. Belle turned to Adam and smiled. "We've accomplished so much together, but we're just at the beginning. This journey where I found both you and myself is only the start." Adam gently took Belle's hand. "Yes," he said slowly. "I'm no longer living in the shadow of the past. Thanks to you, I'm trusting the world again, and I'm also growing with your dreams." Belle felt a deep sense of peace at Adam's words. Their lives were no longer limited to each other. They had grown as individuals on their journeys and learned to grow together as well. And that, dear whispered ones, is the end of our modern Beauty and the Beast tale. I hope you enjoyed this journey with Belle and Adam as much as I enjoyed telling it. Through love, patience, and understanding, they found their way to each other and, more importantly, to themselves. It's a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful transformations come not from the outside, but from within. Thank you for joining me today in this peaceful corner of Whispered Tales. If you found comfort in this story, don't forget to return for more whispered journeys into worlds of wonder, love, and growth. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and may your own tale continue to unfold with magic and love. Good night, and I'll see you in the next story.